You know how we do this, right? You tell yourself, oh, I'm just not a math person, or maybe I'm way too introverted for that. We all have these labels we stick on ourselves. But what if those labels, the very answers to the question, who am I, are actually the cages we build for ourselves? Okay, let's really get into that.
So get this. Think about Leonardo da Vinci. You'd expect his diaries to be full of like, my 5-year plan to become a Renaissance man, right? But nope, not at all. His notebooks are just overflowing with questions, with problems. How in the world do birds fly? How do our muscles actually work? You see, he wasn't trying to build an identity. He was just obsessed with solving puzzles.
And that right there is the big question, isn't it? While Da Vinci was busy chasing down problems, we're constantly being told to build an identity. Be a specialist, or no, wait, be a generalist, or a multi-hyphenate. So why are we so obsessed with being a noun when the people who really changed the world were all about the verb?
So first, let's take a closer look at how these labels really work in our day-to-day lives. And a lot of the time, we don't even realize it's happening.
Let's take a look at Sarah. She's a marketer, and she absolutely knows that learning a little bit of code would make her amazing at her job. The opportunity is just sitting right there, but she doesn't do it. And why not? Well, it all comes down to a story she tells herself. A simple description of her past, I wasn't great at math in school, has somehow morphed into this rigid, unbreakable rule for her future.
Now this is where it gets really fascinating. There's this super subtle psychological trick our brains play on us. It's a specific, hidden mechanism that can turn a simple observation about ourselves into what feels like a life sentence. It pretty much happens in 3 steps. First, there's compression. This is where we take our messy, complicated history and we squeeze it into a neat little label, like I'm a creative person or I'm an introvert. It's a mental shortcut, and honestly, we need them. But the mistake happens in step 2, reification. That's a fancy word for when we start treating that shortcut as if it's a solid, real, unchangeable thing. And that, of course, leads to step 3, constraint. That label now acts like a gatekeeper, telling us what we can and can't do, and suddenly there's this invisible fence built around our potential.
And this right here illustrates the whole problem perfectly. It's this tiny but totally devastating leap in language, from I've shown patterns of to I am. The first one, that's just an observation. It's flexible. But the second one, that's a verdict. It's a judgment. I've struggled with some technical things in the past becomes I am not a technical person. And bam, the cage door just slams shut.
Okay, so if that's the trap, how in the world do we get out of it? Well, the key seems to be to stop focusing so much on who we are and start focusing on what we want to solve. Let's look at how some of the greats in history pulled this off.
So here's the game-changing contrast. The identity frame gets you stuck. It makes you ask, am I the kind of person who could do this? And that's paralyzing. But the problem frame, it gets you moving. It asks, okay, what would I need to learn to solve this? You see the difference? One is about being, the other is all about doing.
Just look at someone like Benjamin Franklin. I guarantee you he didn't wake up one day and say, my goal is to become an inventor, a civic leader, and a diplomat. No way! He just looked around his city, Philadelphia, and saw problems. House fires, inefficient heating, lightning strikes, and he just asked, how can I fix this? His incredible, wide-ranging skill set was just a side effect of his obsession with solving problems.
Or how about the physicist Richard Feynman? He hated labels. He actively fought against them. He dove into biology, not because he wanted to be interdisciplinary, but just because he thought proteins were a really cool puzzle. He learned to crack safes during the Manhattan Project, basically for the fun of it. His guide wasn't some pre-written resume for genius, it was just pure, unadulterated curiosity. And this right here, this is the secret sauce. For people like Da Vinci, Franklin, and Feynman, all that knowledge across all those different fields, that wasn't the goal. It was the byproduct. It was the exhaust fumes coming from an engine that was powered by raw curiosity and this deep desire to solve very specific problems.
All right, this all sounds great in theory, but how do we actually start doing this? Let's get really practical. I'm going to give you a tool you can use literally the second this explainer is over.
Okay, here's a super simple but really powerful exercise. Grab a piece of paper or open a note on your phone. First, write down one of those limiting I am statements you tell yourself. Second, really ask yourself, is this some fundamental, unchangeable truth about me, or is it just a description of my past behavior, a pattern? And third, rewrite it. I want you to change I am not to I haven't yet.
And you can take this straight into your daily conversations. Just check out the shift in this table. Instead of dropping a verdict like, I am an introvert, you can describe a tendency. I tend toward introspection. Instead of, I'm not a math person, try, I haven't built up my math confidence yet. This language doesn't just sound different, it feels different. It opens up possibilities where before there was just a dead end.
So let's wrap all this up with what is probably the single most important idea in this whole explainer. It's a complete shift in how we think about our very selves. So here it is, the core idea. You are not a noun. You're just not. You aren't some fixed, static thing with a set essence. You are a verb. You're a process. Who you are isn't some ancient artifact you have to go dig up and discover. It's something you are actively creating and recreating with every single problem you choose to tackle. And what that means is that all those cages we talked about, I'm not creative, I'm not technical, that's just not me, well, they were never locks to begin with. The whole time we've been holding the key, just mistakenly believing that the bars were solved.
So the final question isn't really, who are you anymore? It's, what problem out there fascinates you? And what self-imposed cage are you going to decide to just calmly step out of starting today?